For centuries, explorers have sought to find the lost continent of Atlantis, a mythical city/empire of immeasurable wealth and advanced technologies supposedly swallowed by the sea. But what if the legend isn't just a myth? What if the real-life Atlantis was not found in a dusty book, but on a computer screen thousands of feet beneath the waves? What if the discovery was made, documented, and then forgotten for more than 2 decades? Join me as we once again go in search of the legendary Atlantis in a place most people never expect on this episode of The Weekly Strange. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Weekly Strange. I'm your host, John F. Murs, author, actor, adventurer. Today, we're embarking on a journey to the depths of the ocean, once again to revisit one of the most compelling and baffling paranormal mysteries of our time. And we are at the most unlikely, I think, places for the potential to find Atlantis. Now, look, I know we've looked at this story before. We just looked at Denellan's claim that Atlantis is actually off the coast of Spain, and you can check that video out here. But this came up recently, and so I started digging into it, and now we are going to look at today the so-called sunken city of Cuba. So, it's a weird location. I never thought of Atlantis as being over, so to speak, on this side of the world, but there you go. People are asking about this now because it happened in 2001 and then just dropped off the radar. So let's get into it. Basically, in 2001, a team of Canadian marine engineers made a discovery that probably should have been bigger than it actually was. They found what looked like massive stone structures, pyramids, and just something that more or less looked like a city complex deep in the Pinar del Rio province. But almost as quickly as the news broke, the story disappeared. No major follow-up expeditions, no grand reveals, just silence. So was it a hoax? Or a misinterpretation of nature? Or was something more sinister at play? Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have all the information you need to decide for yourself what it was. All right, so as I said, this is 2001 when this is all happening. The Cold War, for all intents and purposes, is over, but never really was, but regardless. Tensions between the U.S. and Cuba remain. Into this environment came a Canadian company called Advanced Digital Communications, or ADC. And it was led by marine engineers Paulina Zalitsky and her husband Paul Weinsweig. Their team wasn't hunting for treasure or lost cities. They'd been contacted by the Cuban government to perform a survey of the ocean floor, primarily as a way to identify suitable locations for a fiber optic cable, and if they happen to come across any submerged, shipwrecks at the time, they were encouraged to report those as well. They were a professional, highly regarded team with state-of-the-art deep-sea sonar equipment. Their ROV, a remotely operated submersible, was tasked with scanning an area over 2 square kilometers at a mind-boggling depth of between 2,000 and 2,500 feet. Now, what they saw on the sonar was anything but routine. The typical undulating pattern of the seabed was replaced by clear geometric forms. The scans showed structures with sharp 90-degree angles, perfectly straight lines, and repeating patterns. It looked like a city grid. Zalitsky said, quote, "It looked like a city built by the gods." The sheer scale of it was staggering. The team's initial estimates suggested the complex was composed of 4 massive pyramid-like structures and numerous other formations that actually look like streets and organized blocks of urban planning. There were also just tons of blocks of stone that didn't look natural, and this whole thing wasn't a single anomaly. It was a complex system of stuff under the waves. Their preliminary analysis concluded that if these structures were indeed man-made, they would have had to have been built on dry land, which would mean they were submerged more than 6,000 years ago. After the initial discovery, Zalitsky and Weinsweig were able to secure a second expedition. This time, they brought a more advanced ROV with better imaging capabilities. The footage they captured, though still blurry and atmospheric, was even more tantalizing. The team reported finding smooth blocks with some appearance of hewn granite, some of which were 8 by 10 feet. They also captured images of what looked like stone carvings and even inscriptions. Now, bear in mind, this is 2001, 2002, so when we say imaging technology, it wasn't that great. Let's break down some of the incredible claims that the team said they came across. They said they identified structures that resembled the Great Pyramids of ancient Egypt, but with a unique stepped design. They also talked about seeing large spherical objects that appeared to be part of the city's design, possibly an ancient form of art or technology. And most compellingly, they believed they found a great plaza of sorts, with stones arranged in a deliberate pattern, much like the streets of a modern city. The consistency of these symmetrical forms, spread out over such a large area, was the key argument for their artificial origin. Weinsweig famously said, quote, "There is just too much organization, too much symmetry, too much repetition of form for it to have been a natural formation." He also pointed to the discovery of volcanic rocks at the site, which is just huge because there are no volcanoes in Cuba. The news was sensational, but it was met with, immediate skepticism, let's say, from the wider scientific community. The discovery's primary critic was Manuel Iturralde Viñent, a respected Cuban geologist. His argument was, and to this day kind of remains the most powerful counterpoint to the city theory, he proposed that the so-called structures were likely natural. They pointed to phenomena like a type of geological fracturing that can create linear patterns. He also suggested that underwater landslides or currents could create deposits that look like stacked uniform blocks from a distance. The sheer depth of the find, over 2,000 feet, is also a major sticking point. For a city to be submerged at that depth, the landmass would have to have sunk over many thousands of years, and no known tectonic event could have caused such a precise city-preserving collapse. Furthermore, Iturralde Viñent pointed out that the photos were not conclusive. Without physical samples, a definitive judgment was impossible. This is where the story gets kind of murky. As the initial buzz faded around this, and all the skeptics came out of the woodwork, the funding for further expeditions disappeared. The Cuban government, which had been a partner in the project, all of a sudden didn't want to push for more research. The international scientific community certainly wasn't going to help. They couldn't justify spending the millions required for a deep-sea archaeological dig based on what they considered to be inconclusive sonar images. And again, the technology at this time. And so the story sort of slipped into obscurity, just sort of a tantalizing mystery that no one seemed willing or able to solve. And I think we also have to remember that you can't discount the political climate of the time. The early 2000s in Cuba were complicated, to say the least. The United States still had a strict trade embargo in place, and foreign research, especially on anything that could remotely have geopolitical implications, was heavily scrutinized. This is still a communist country, after all. Now, Advanced Digital Communications was a Canadian company working with a government that was famously cautious about what information was released to the outside world. Some have speculated that the Cuban government, unable to fund the research itself and wary of attracting unwanted attention from American interests, chose to just quietly drop the project, push it off to the side. A discovery that could challenge the known history of the Americas might also invite a level of foreign scrutiny and presence that Cuba, and the government in particular, was not comfortable with. Was the lack of funding a genuine issue, or was it a convenient excuse to bury a find that was just simply too big, too expensive, and potentially too politically sensitive to handle? This layer of political intrigue adds a new dimension to the mystery, suggesting that the silence might not be the result of scientific consensus, but a careful act of statecraft. The story of Cuba's sunken city never truly died. It lived on in the imaginations of paranormal enthusiasts, conspiracy theorists, and ancient history buffs, and dudes who dig lost civilizations like yours truly. The legend of Atlantis, as we discussed before, first talked about by Plato, has been a core pillar of human mythology for thousands of years. And the idea of a lost, highly advanced civilization being wiped out by a cataclysmic event is still a powerful one. In recent years, this story has been experiencing something of I don't want to say massive, but there's been a definite resurgence on social media platforms and online forums. New generations are rediscovering the original news reports and sonar images, and without the context of the early 2000s, they've all been asking the same questions. Like, why hasn't this been investigated further and with renewed interest and vigor? And this isn't the only thing that people are rediscovering. The mystery of the Yonaguni Monument in Japan, which is a massive underwater rock formation with an almost perfect pyramid shape, has also seen a recent spike in interest, showing a clear trend of public fascination with lost submerged worlds, which is also why we're revisiting the Atlantis theory, this time in Cuba this week. And this proves that there is a genuine sustained appetite for these stories. All right, so we've looked at the, so-called evidence, the skepticism, and the geopolitical implications of this incident. Where does that leave us? The sonar data, I guess you could say, is compelling. The geological arguments are strong. And the political explanations for the silence are definitely plausible. But the fact remains, we have no definitive proof either way. It stands as a perfect example of a mystery that lies at the intersection of science and the supernatural, a potential civilization that will remain lost until we are ready to find it. So with all that said, now it's your turn. What do you guys think? Is this a real-life Atlantis, or is it just a masterful illusion created by nature? Drop your thoughts in the comments below this video. Let me know what you think. Tie it into the previous video that I did on the coast of Spain as being a likely resting place for Atlantis. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of The Weekly Strange. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new uploads. Be sure to please share this channel and this video with any like-minded enthusiasts. Check out the other videos, especially the one we did previously on Atlantis. And don't forget to check out the new membership perks for those who join the channel. Always looking for new members. If you like what I'm doing, please consider joining the channel as a member to help support it. But for now, thank you very much for watching and listening. I will see you next time on The Weekly Strange. Good night.